keeps looking at me. And, kids change a lot between 12 and 15 anyway. And so incarcerated kids change a lot more than that. So I didn't recognize him at first. But about halfway through the sermon, I recognized that I was face to face for the first time in 3 years with the kid that killed my son. 1:30 in the morning on August 27th, I'm standing in the D.C. morgue identifying, my son's body. And on August 26, 1995, he had gotten into a fight with a 12-year-old named Dante earlier in the day, basically over a corner. I fully admit that my son was, selling drugs, and I hadn't been able to really get a handle on that. I'd only been home a few months. So they got into a fight earlier in the day, and the kid lost the fight, comes back with a gun, shoots my son. Even talking about the healing of it, and not necessarily because I'm still in a whole lot of pain, although there's still some there. I'm not going to deny and say that, I'm completely all the way there. But it is part of what was keeping me sort of bound up and angry was that I hadn't forgiven. One thing I've learned about forgiveness is that sometimes it has more to do with me than it does with the other person. That I'm the one bound up and sort of trapped to dealing with my, anger at Dante. But none of that was helping me. Walking around with all of that stuff was sort of like just walking around with a pressure cooker, constantly like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. And the more I was holding on to it, the angrier I was getting. Letting it go for me was I would say it's probably the best thing that I ever did, just for my own self. Yes, it had a great effect on Dante, and yes, it was the start of a healing process for both of us. But whether or not you're actually sorry for what you did or not, I'm not bound up anymore. So it's just easier to kind of let go of some stuff than it is to kind of walk around with that anger and that pain and I'm not telling anybody else that they should or they shouldn't. What everybody's healing process is, being, the parent of or a family member of a homicide victim, is everybody else's process. I'm not trying to dictate that to anybody else. Not quite where I am with this. So, as a result, this is kind of contentious, and I would say it's a little contentious between us too, that she's not quite, and I respect that too. I respect the fact that she's not as that forgiveness for her has taken a little longer, and her process has been a little different. She carried him for 9 months. I didn't. So I respect the fact that she's not quite where I'm at. All of that forgiveness process. He's a very different man today. He is, so now 24 years later, obviously he's been out since he was 21, and tells me all the time that as a result of our relationship and my willingness to forgive, that he is not the kid that went in that, obviously, and his life obviously is different. To actually be in a situation where you have to really forgive and let go, and that you want to see somebody else's life healed too, and not, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, that all sounds good until you've lived it. A lot of people who are, I've heard this from other people who are probably not where I'm at, have said, well, that sounds good. In fact, I just had this big argument with somebody on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Oh, well, that all sounds good until you actually live it. I'm like, yeah, but I have.